We welcome you to this forum featuring the candidates who are running for the primary election for City Council Ward 3 in the city of Robbinsdale, Minnesota. The primary election will be held on Tuesday, August 9th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. My name is Patsy Green. I am the president of League of Women Voters of Crystal, New Hope, East Plymouth, Robbinsdale, and I am a resident of New Hope. The League of Women Voters is proud of its history of citizen education in our communities and provides these forums to help you make informed decisions in local elections. League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization and the views of the candidates are their own. We do not assume responsibility for the contents of the candidate statements, and we want to thank CCX Media for their assistance and the City of Robbinsdale for the use of their council chambers. Candidates have drawn for order and will speak for up to 3 minutes of their vision for the City of Robbinsdale. A timer will assist the candidates. There are 6 candidates for Ward 3. We have 5 present tonight. Following that, members of the audience may ask questions of individuals or all candidates by writing a question on one of the cards provided and hand it to a league member. You will see league members over there. Just raise your hand and they will happily give you a card. And we also have extra pens and pencils. We do not take questions from the floor. Questions submitted online up to the day before the forum will also be included. All candidates will have an opportunity to answer any question, whether or not it was directed to them. Candidates have up to 1 minute to answer each question. And then we have our timers here. Thank you, Pauline and Sarah. They will show you, can everybody see the 1 minute? Then they have 30 seconds, and then they have stop. When you see the stop, please finish your sentence, and we'll move on to the next candidate. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Kathy Pedersen, a resident of Plymouth.
Thank you, Patsy. Good evening. Welcome, candidates. I want to welcome the 6 candidates running for Ward 3, Robbinsdale City Council. Our first candidate to speak is Jonathan Healy. Jonathan?
Hi, my name is Jonathan Healy and I'm running for City Council. I have elected experience which sets me apart. I was elected to 3 terms on the Cleveland Neighborhood Association board and I served roughly 3,000 constituents. That was just across Victory Memorial. I served on the Live on the Drive committee for 8 years. I serve on the Human Rights Commission and I'm an appointed member of the Charter Commission. In my professional career, I'm a user experience designer. I'm here because I'm passionate about fixing things at the local place, making things easier for people, and I want to do that for our city. I have knocked on almost 1,000 doors in our ward, including almost 600 apartments. We have everything from Section 8 apartments to houses that are currently on the market for over $500,000. So we have a wide range of people in the ward. I'm here asking for your vote to serve all of Ward 3. So I'm running on policies like a $15 minimum wage, keeping Birdtown walkable, replacing waste management with good local union labor. I have my policies on my brochure, on my website at votehealy.com, and on social media. I believe in transparency and giving voters the respect of having actual policies instead of vague platitudes of being good neighbors and being for good things and against bad things. Because of the policies on my brochure, I didn't have room for blank pages or recipes. I'm not here to tell you about some establishment figure in St. Paul or Washington that is supporting me or about an endorsement that I have from a board that I currently sit on. I'm here to be a nonpartisan representative. I'm not a career politician and I don't have ambitions beyond City Council. And I want to help keep the City Council focused on livability issues like reducing crime and getting the best deal on light rail. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Our next candidate is Jen Straiter.
Thank you. I'm Jen Straiter. My pronouns are she, her, and I've been your neighbor since I bought my house over on Noble Avenue in 2014. I'm an experienced queer progressive with a track record for effective leadership, both within the DFL party serve as the interim vice chair of the LGBTQIA+ caucus of the DFL, Stonewall DFL, and I'm the web director of our local Senate district. I really think that I've been a paid staff member on the Biden campaign's tech team, but I've also done things like I want to run a women in tech nonprofit for a little while. I can take all of the relationships that I have gained through my political connections, both at the county, state, and federal level, to benefit Robbinsdale. In 2016, I had an amazing opportunity to go to Copenhagen, Denver on a Fulbright grant. During that time, I rented out my house, and it gave me a really unique perspective on being a landlord, dealing with city rules, regulations, code violations, and the problems that tenants are facing, which is why housing discrimination and tenants' peace of mind is core to my platform. In total, I've lived in 5 U.S. states and 2 foreign countries. That means that I've seen a lot of different ways that cities can work effectively, in ways that city policies fall flat. I know we talk about this being a nonpartisan race, and we're going to find a lot of common ground when we're talking about streetlights and potholes and even the garbage pickup probably. But Robbinsdale has an abortion clinic and a shop, both of which are regulated at the state and federal level. You can't really get much more partisan than that. I own the fact that I am a proud member of the DFL, and it doesn't hold me back. I am gaining bipartisan and nonpartisan support with organizations like the Minnesota Now, the Minnesota chapter of the National Organization for Women, because what we're all really looking for in Ward 3 is someone who's going to turn your mic on. What we're really looking for is someone who's going to show up and get stuff done, as I have done time and time again for other organizations. And someone who's going to listen. I really am looking forward to your feedback, and when we disagree, I'm still going to answer anyway. And I'm not an expert in everything, so I really look forward to that feedback and finding common ground in the places that we can. I can take all of my unique life experience to make Robbinsdale a much more accessible city. I'm going to make it a city that's more transit friendly, that is safer for bikes and pedestrians, that is affordable and inclusive for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Straiter. Our next candidate is Mia Parisian.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mia Z. Parisian, and I'm thrilled to be here as one of your Ward 3 city candidates. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for holding this important event, and CCX Media for making it accessible to our friends and neighbors. I also want to thank my fellow candidates for being up here. I can acknowledge that it takes courage to sit up here in front of a crowd, and it also takes courage to run for office. For those of you who are here to become a more informed voter, thank you. You have more power than you know in the future of Robbinsdale, and I appreciate you being here to get to know us as whole humans. I'm here to share a bit about myself and why I'm running. My family has deep roots in Robbinsdale. My mom, a single mother of 4 kids, moved us into our house on Major Avenue. I attended Robbinsdale schools, TLC, Cooper. My first job was with our Parks and Rec department, tending to the ice rink on Lee Park, just beyond our backyard. I graduated from St. Olaf College and lived overseas for a few years, teaching at Chiang Mai University. So as a former educator, I continued pursuing a career serving people on their learning journeys. I now design learning experiences for adults as an instructional designer in the tech industry. My husband, who is a combat veteran, and I now live in that same house on Major Avenue. We are continuing my mother's legacy after she passed away about 5 years ago. She loved that home, and we do too. I love being from Robbinsdale, and I love living in Robbinsdale. Past and present, this city is woven into the fabric of my life and my family, and I care deeply about its legacy, which is why I'm especially proud to be running. I'm here for several reasons, all of which I believe are rooted in empathy and supporting residents' happiness, safety, and growth. I'm a champion of inclusion, working to ensure all voices are heard. I was a moderator of conversations with Robbinsdale candidates in 2020, holding important Q&A sessions on racial equity. I care about the environment, and I will support green initiatives and work to expand eco-programs related to native plants, community gardening, and alternative eco-conscious mobility within our city. I'm also running with representation in mind. The City Council needs more women representing our community. Our neighbors in Golden Valley and Crystal, at least half of their City Council members are women, while Robbinsdale has not seen 2 women on our council at one time. I want to serve in order making getting involved in local government more accessible to young women and non-binary people. I think you'll see that I run a transparent and informative campaign. I'm proud to serve as the chair of the Robbinsdale Planning Commission, and I have earned the trust and endorsement of our Ward 2 City Council member Sheila Webb and our Mayor Bill Blonigan. I hope that I can also earn your vote and trust in order to serve you on our City Council. Thank you.
Our next candidate is David Albrecht.
Thank you very much. My name is David Albrecht, and I'm running for your City Council Ward 3 representative. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this. Thank you to CCX Media for broadcasting this, both the live and the streaming that people will be able to see after this as well. And also thank you to the City of Robbinsdale for allowing us to use the chambers for this event. A little bit about myself. My wife and I bought our house April 1st, 2014, after only looking in Robbinsdale. We were renting an apartment over in Golden Valley before this, and we fell absolutely in love with Robbinsdale. For our wedding, we actually used a business, unfortunately, that is out of business now, for all of our flowers for our wedding, and they did an amazing job, and that's where we just seeing Robbinsdale and falling in love with it. A year later, we had our daughter, who is turning 7 on Thursday here. So growing up in Robbinsdale, visiting all the parks with her, looking out for the community, the community gardens, the accessibility of the parks, and excuse me. I also believe in transparency from our government. There can't be enough information put out there from our city, whether it's from the current council or from city leadership, to be able to disseminate all that information out to everybody, and not just on social media. You know, social media has been the biggest one, but we still need other forms out there for the people who do not wish to have that social media aspect of in their lives. I believe that the city needs to move even more into the digital age, where they can look at saving a lot of costs. If you look at the city council agendas, where they're 150 plus page agendas, and they're being printed out minimum of 5 or 6 times for every single meeting, it's a waste of a ton of different resources, from the paper to the toner to the electricity, to just the man hours going into making that. So I'd like to, champion that and bring them more into that digital age. I am a believer in the LRT. I am not a believer in the current alignment that the Met Council just put out. I was involved with the LRT planning on the previous alignment through the rail corridor, and I would love to see our representation from a federal level get more involved to get BNSF back to the table to talk about moving forward with the rail corridor. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final candidate is David Robbins. David?
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters. I'd like to thank CCX for making this possible. I'd like to thank our attendees here this evening. I'm Dave Robbins for Robbinsdale, and I'll start by emphasizing just why this event is so important to me. We live in the digital age where you can remain informed no matter where you are. However, this excludes those who, for whatever reason, are not utilizing the internet or social media as if it's an elite club and not everyone's invited. That's why I'm really excited about being here tonight. This has a local focus and it's accessible to everyone. We're all entitled to be informed and to have a voice. That's one reason why in my campaign, Robbins for Robbinsdale, the refrain is restore the conversation. Technology connects the world, but makes it easier than ever to withdraw into our phones, into our computers, and social media. And that's even before the pandemic taught us what social distancing was all about. One thing is for sure, it doesn't make good neighbors. It's time to get out from behind our screens and our masks and engage people in person. This is the beating heart of our democracy. I'm a former school teacher. I now work in adult education. I'm a husband, a volunteer, dog owner, a musician, and a friend. I currently serve on the Robbinsdale Charter Commission, and if elected, my pledge is to make the City Council more accessible than ever, creating more advisory commissions and modeling inclusive practices. The Charter Commission has demonstrated our interest in inclusion, even revising dated language in the Charter to be more gender neutral. We also advocated for greater diversity within our own ranks. In fact, fellow Commissioner Kelly Grayler and I represented the Commission at Whiz Bang Days, and later at the Chamber of Commerce meet and greet, looking to connect with new people who are interested in bringing their voice to the Charter Commission. I consider myself an independent. Ward 3 is not entirely made up of the same type of voter, and I don't see how any person who can maintain a pledge to represent everyone when they are beholden to political endorsements. Historically, I have voted for the candidate who put constituents first. In my opinion, a moderate puts people over politics and ideas over ideology. Ego-driven politics, photo ops, chest thumping, prevents our government from coming together and acting efficiently, and it hurts you, the constituents. I'm motivated by an inclusive and transparent city government, one that doesn't bury taxpayer costs under a mountain of internet links, and accounting lingo. I'm motivated to reduce taxes and make the recipients of our tax dollars, such as our schools, more accountable to us. I'm motivated to put aside egos to make the City Council work better together. Most of all, if elected, I'm motivated to respond to each of my constituents with urgency, a neighbor helping neighbors. Please vote for the extremely moderate choice, Dave Robbins, and let's restore the conversation together. Thank you.
Thank you. You have heard the 6 candidates for Ward 3 of the City of Robbinsdale who are on the primary election ballot. It is now time for the question from the audience. The audience may continue to write and raise your hand for a league member to collect your questions during the forum. Questions may be directed to an individual candidate or to all candidates, and each candidate can respond to any question. If a question is directed to a specific candidate, the other candidates will be given a chance to respond briefly to that question. It is our intention to select questions that represent the interests expressed by the members of our audience and those who submitted questions prior to this forum using our email site or by phone. We do reserve the right to consolidate questions if there are several on one issue, so that as many issues as possible may be covered during the period. Questions will be answered in a rotating order. Candidates, please limit your response to 1 minute. The first one to answer the first question will be Jonathan. This is a general question for all of the candidates. Do you support a community center?
Yes. In fact, that's one of the things that's in my platform, and it's on my website. We need an event center. We need a community center in Robbinsdale. We had an event center when we had St. Petersburg, but that is no longer. We have Parker Station Flats in that location, and I know personally, I'm gay, and I'm getting married to my partner in September. The first thing I did was look to see what event centers do we have in Robbinsdale, and we don't have any. So yes, I firmly agree that we need a community center in Robbinsdale.
Go ahead.
Yes, so I'd have to agree for many of the same reasons. I
a community center would be great. We know that we need more places to do things, especially programs for our youth, and a community center would be a great place to do that, as well as gather for all kinds of different organizations in our community. I guess I'll
Pretty much it? Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yes, I do support a community center, and I'll tell you why. Several years ago, I might show my age here, but when I was in my early 20s, I taught wellness classes through the Robbinsdale Parks and Rec. Now, still at that time, we didn't have a community center, as we don't now, and I ended up teaching those classes in the basement of 4100, our police department station. So imagine, coming to a wellness, relaxing yoga class, and we end up going through an elevator and then going down to the basement. That can feel a little bit strange. And, it does affect our, residents who want to take part in some of our Parks and Rec organizations and programs to maybe feel a little bit confused or maybe feel like they're not getting the best experience that they can. So with that experience in mind, I absolutely support a community center in Robbinsdale. Thank you.
Next.
I would absolutely support a community center as long as it's done fiscally responsibly so that we are spending the taxpayers' money in the right way, getting input from the community and not just a few people making those decisions without that being put out there. Back before we had the Hy-Vee, I was president of the Robbinsdale Food Co-op, and we had to rent out the space in the basement of the police station as well. So I understand what Mia had to go through with that as well. So yes, I would be in support of it, and again, as long as it's fiscally responsible with our money.
I guess we're all in agreement. Yes, I also am an advocate of a community center. I do think it's the Robbinsdale Economic Development Authority has a really great opportunity to leverage the opportunity to redevelopment or to redevelop a property or independently or with the help of an outside contractor in order to create that facility. That is affordable and is in Robbinsdale's best tax interests, but it doesn't really excuse the fact that we need to reach across the fence. We need to go meet our neighbors. A community center is great, brings people together from all over the city, but we still have to do our job as neighbors to make sure we even know who's moving into 2 houses down the block. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question. If you support the light rail, what are 3 reasons why? If you are against the light rail, what are 3 reasons why? We'll start with Jen.
Yes, so transportation and light rail is the first thing on my platform. It is something that I support. As someone who has lived in Europe and many other cities that have wonderful transit systems, I have been looking forward to this for a very long time. In fact, when I bought my house in 2014, I was told, oh, the light rail will be here by 2020. And when I came back to Robbinsdale, we still haven't started yet. Part of that is accessibility, especially with the cost of gas right now. There are times where I want to go downtown. I don't have to deal with parking. Personally, I work for Target headquarters in Brooklyn Park, so I want to be able to go to work by train as well. And I want to be able to go out to dinner or downtown to go somewhere and not have to worry about how I'm going to get back if I've had too many to drink.
Thank you for this question. Yes, I do support the long overdue Blue Line Light Rail Transit project. And I say that as a former bus commuter. I used to take the 14 route from my stopover on Noble. So as we know, this project has been approved by the Met Council and the Hennepin County Board, but it is not set in stone. So my priority when addressing this project is protecting mobility And when I say mobility, I'm talking about car drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians. So residents should have safe mobility options within and around our city. So County Road 81 already divides our city in a sense, and the light rail transit would compound that division. So mobility and safety is of paramount importance, and I will work to ensure that Robbinsdale maintains that safety and mobility and make sure those needs are met before this project is finalized by the City Council. Thank you.
David?
I am for light rail. I am against the Met Council's current alignment. Reasons I am for light rail are, people need another mode of transportation out there. Not everybody has a car. Not everybody can afford a car, especially with today's gas prices. Buses is not always the option. Sometimes there's multiple transfers that you have to take with a bus, whereas a light rail would be a straight shot into the downtown or to up by Target North Campus in Brooklyn Park. I am against the current alignment after speaking with a couple of the business owners, one of which is telling me that they're going to lose about a third of their parking lot, which is going to really hurt them as a business. During that construction on 81 there, it is going to be an absolute nightmare for all of our businesses. It's going to make it hard. It's going to be dangerous for pedestrians, for bicyclists, and for other automobiles at the time. Thanks.
Finally, David?
Yes, I'm in favor of extended and free public transportation. I am a big advocate of an arterial bus rapid transit system. Electrified buses, environmentally friendly, personally, I think very doable. But no, I am not in favor of the Blue Line extension plan. I believe that route risks splitting communities, ourselves included. I think that risks displacing people along that route. There has been no recent needs assessment, I believe prior to 2019, that the Met Council has conducted that takes into account the factors of COVID and the now working from home patterns that we're currently seeing. So need, I think, is a interesting question. And furthermore, the route is really unacceptable. We've done so much in this community to get 81 with traffic flowing. It's doing well. There are no real problems with that. I think it could be a very disruptive plan if the one that was approved were to proceed.
Thank you. And Jonathan?
Hi, I am for transit. I am against this current alignment. I don't think that we really have an option because we can't really keep our consent, but it goes into a process called municipal consent next year. And if you look at the map, they have certain stations that are filled in up in Brooklyn Park, and they have different ovals in Crystal, in Robbinsdale, and Minneapolis, where they're calling study areas. Those are not set in stone yet, and so I would definitely work to have it co-locate with the BNSF line, because I've spoken with a number of residents along Lakeland, and they, 81 was recently redone. We don't understand how they could run alignment on that route.
All right, our third question. This question comes from an email. Robbinsdale is home to both a gun shop and an abortion clinic. What is your opinion regarding recent Supreme Court rulings and its effect on the city of Robbinsdale? We will begin with Mia.
Thank you. This is a big question for 1 minute, I will say, so I'll try to be quick. In terms of our gun shop, I do have to say that gun violence in schools is at an all-time high. We've got more than 300,000 students who have been impacted by gun violence in schools since Columbine. And the new gun legislation that has passed by President Biden in the last few days is a welcome change, but we need to do so much more. So with that in mind, I would like to see communication from RPD when they do experience a threat related to gun violence and the steps that they will take to protect their community. Now on to the overturning of Roe. This was devastating for us to witness this past Friday. I myself, and I imagine a lot of people in this room, are still processing some of those feelings around sadness and confusion and rage, and those are all valid. So the rights were stripped from women and people who can get pregnant, and I believe that abortion rights are a public health issue. They are a human rights issue. They are an LGBTQIA plus issue. They are a racial equity issue. They are a socioeconomic issue. I'm being asked to stop, so I trust that I have made my position clear. Thank you.
Okay, David?
Hearing the news the other day on the Roe versus Wade decision reinforced why I'm happy that my wife and I and my daughter and all of my family members live in Minnesota. Devastation through and through with that. I don't know what else to say. I don't want to speak for anybody because I am a male, and I don't want to speak on behalf of a female for that because of what just got taken away from them. As for the gun shop, I agree with Mia. We do need more reporting of anything involving weaponry in Robbinsdale. I do know that they do secure that store down very, very well. There was a car, if I recall correctly, a couple years ago trying to ram into the store to break into there to get weaponry, and they were not successful in being able to do that. So I'm very thankful for that. We definitely need to do more about gun legislation and, protecting and safety rules with that. Thanks.
David?
The Washington D.C. is so polarized. What is remarkable is that they were able to set aside some of that polarization in order to come together with the gun bill. I think the red flag laws are an excellent step forward, and I'm pleased to see it. The other thing I'll mention with regards to abortion, I'm pleased to say, proud to say, that we are surrounded by states who don't see things our way. In the 1995 Supreme Court ruling, Minnesota Supreme Court enshrined the right of a woman to get an abortion if that were her choice, and I do not foresee that changing. Thank you.
John?
Yeah, so there was two different devastating decisions passed down from the Supreme Court last week. One curtailed our Miranda rights. That came out on Thursday. On Friday, we had another devastating decision that stripped rights from tens of millions of women and those that can become pregnant. It is completely unacceptable. I am firmly in support of abortion and people's right to choose. I don't think that having a gun shop is necessarily like a right or left issue because there are so many responsible gun owners out there. I think what we need is we need gun safety, and if I could correct David Albrecht, there was a car that did succeed in breaking into that gun shop 4 years ago, and they did make off with weapons. I'm glad to see that since then they have added bollards to create safety there.
And finally, Jen?
Yes, thank you. So this is a polarizing topic, as we have seen so far. And there are two very distinct things here. And we want to talk about them at the city level and kind of what belongs in state and federal legislation versus what is here at the city. And there are lots of things that the state and federal government are doing that we don't always agree with when it comes to the decision on Friday. For the gun shop, safe and responsible gun ownership is the way to go. It's not just a gun shop, there are safety classes and other things there that make me feel a little bit better. If you haven't ever been to Bill's or by it, it's a different crowd than I was expecting, and that might be something that we should let the federal government do. For our abortion clinic, it has actually been in the national news, the harassment that the patients face going into it, and I would really like to be able to defend those patients a little bit better for their right to privacy and safety as they enter that building.
All right, thank you. This is our last question. Oh, excuse me. The next question will be our last question. This question, we will begin with David Ulrich. Speak your view on ethics for governmental officials and its place in your candidacy.
Can you please repeat the question one more time for me?
Speak to your view on ethics for governmental officials and its place in your candidacy.
Ethics needs to fall everywhere, in every single position. In my running for my candidacy, everything that I have out there, all of my literature, everything that I've said, I firmly believe in. I am a person who, if you ask me a question, I will come straight forward and give you my answer. I will not always agree with everybody. They will not always agree with me, but I will give you my straightforward and honest answer.
Okay. David?
Yes, I think it's really important. It's a really important question to talk about ethics, but I think we need to think very broadly about ethics. Ethics is not just outright violation of law, conflict of interest, failure to act in a responsible and professional manner, but it's also about how we conduct ourselves just personally and every day in terms of how we are bringing people in and including them in the discussion that is the government of our city. Ethics is I think inherent in the role and something that I'm very proud to represent should I be elected. But I think we need to think even broader. I don't fear that anybody up here on the council or on the podium would risk any ethical violations. I'd like to include myself in that, and I will say that I think we need to think broader about general conduct, including how we reach out to people to make ourselves more accessible, more vulnerable, and available.
Thank you. John?
Ethics is very important, and I think what we saw earlier this year shows that we need to, whoever is elected to the city council needs to work with the charter commission on which I sit to change our charter. We need to make it easier to remove elected officials for inappropriate action. And I think that's something that's very important. It's very important that no one misuse their position, either in elected office or on a board, to enrich themselves. When I served on the Cleveland Neighborhood Association board, I passed a home improvement loan program that I personally would have liked to make use of, but I didn't want to use information that not everyone might know, so I didn't get the loan. And I would expect everyone to follow that same kind of practice.
All right. Jen?
Yes, ethics of government. I agree that I think everyone here has been pretty upstanding with their campaign so far, and that transparency is one of the ways in which our current government is lacking, or city government is lacking, well, more so in communication, and that we should focus a little bit more on ethical issues, like the ones that the HRC and the Charter Commission are going after, with things that are just the right thing to do when we talk about covenants and gendered language, which luckily Robbinsdale has has a lot of success in doing some of these things already so far, and I'm very happy to see that, and look forward to working with the future HRC and charter commissions for more ideas on ways that we can be more ethical and do the right thing.
And finally, Mia.
Thank you. Yes, I do believe ethics play an important role with our government officials. As Jonathan mentioned, we had an issue with this earlier this year. I do believe that someone who makes an unethical or dangerous or detrimental or irresponsible mistake, they should be removed from their position. Now, I do also believe that that power to remove someone from the position should remain with the people. And there's a process in place for this on a proposed recall petition. Jonathan mentioned that this should be an easier process, but I actually disagree because I think I do support this process because it protects democracy, and what we need is better communication and education of our community to make sure that they understand to go through the proper process. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This is our last question, and this will be going to candidate Robbins, and then we will follow through with the rest of the candidates. If there is one thing you would change or add to Robbinsdale, what would it be?
Okay, that's a great question, and that's a very difficult question. I really want to say that I really credit the Robbinsdale Economic Development Authority. I think they've done an outstanding job of trying to revitalize our downtown. I think we have a really lovely commercial center. The businesses appear to be doing well, and it's nice to see that the city is coming out to support our businesses and to see the support that our residents of Robbinsdale, actually residents really beyond Robbinsdale, are coming out to support our Robbinsdale businesses, and I think that's great. But one thing that I would really like to see is that we use the opportunity to expand our business district, to make it larger. We're relatively geographically constrained, and I think until we are able to create more retail space, more office space, perhaps combined zoned housing, residential and commercial downtown, that is what I would look to do in my role, to advocate for that kind of work along with the Economic Development Authority, and I hope it happens. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Jonathan.
On my role in the Human Rights Commission, we spoke with officers and we asked them about if they keep information on the demographics of people that they interact with. And they said that no, they do not, because they're waiting on a piece of software that they need. And so I pledged to get them that software. I'm a data guy, so I like to be able to see information and just make sure that we know what's happening. And so if there's training that we need, we can get them the training, and so that we have our PD that serves everyone.
Jen?
I think some of our residents would probably like to say garbage pickup, but I think it actually goes to the root of the problem about how the city communicates with residents. About 2 summers ago, my house started shaking. It sounded like my roommate came running upstairs, sounded like a bowling ball had fallen through the roof. A couple days later, the same thing happened again, but I was outside, so I noticed it wasn't just my house. I happened to be going on the city's Facebook page and noticed that the water treatment plant over on Lee was doing some bombing underground. But the city had only notified the other side of the street. They hadn't notified my side of the street. It did get fixed for the second round. But there are people who aren't on Facebook. I was door knocking the other day and I talked to an elderly gentleman who doesn't have Facebook or internet, still writes paper checks for bills that come in the mail. We need a multi-channel solution that involves text, email, physical mail when it needs to be, because having Facebook shouldn't be a requirement to live in Robbinsdale.
Yeah.
Thank you. One of my top priorities on my campaign is related to the environment, and one of the things that I would like to see in order to support greener initiatives and accessible bike and pedestrian byways. So I would like to propose a bicycle and pedestrian byway serving Ward 3 that starts over on the west side at 39th and Adair, up and over the existing bridge that crosses over Highway 100, and then continuing along 40th over the BNSF, the railroad tracks, and which is, by the way, the only back road that crosses over the railroad tracks. And then continuing on to crossover 81, which will safely connect bikers and pedestrians to Lakeview Terrace, Victory Memorial, and Theodore Wirth. So this also addresses the safety issue I spoke about earlier related to the Blue Line LRT, and I will work to preserve and enhance mobility in and throughout Robbinsdale. Thank you.
And finally?
Thank you. One of the items that I have on my list of priorities is I'd like to see an expansion of the community garden program that we have. Right now, we have an area that was set up brand new this year over at what is considered the Old Bunny Store, for those that remember that name, where residents can get a little plot and they can grow vegetables, grow some fruit, strawberries, radishes, anything like that. I'd like to see more of these small little community gardens pop up all throughout the city, where people, they don't have to take a vehicle to be able to drive to it and get to this small little community garden. They can walk a couple blocks and they can have their little area in there that they're growing their vegetables. I'm a firm believer in, some sustainability of lettuces, cauliflower, cucumbers, squash, so many different vegetables and produce out there that people can grow without a ton of effort. And I just like to see everybody be able to prosper from that in the community.
Thank you, candidates, for sharing your thoughts and answering the questions. We have now reached the final segment of the forum, when each candidate has 1 minute to give a closing statement. We will begin in reverse order from the opening statements, and that means we begin with candidate Robbins.
Thank you once again. It was really, really a pleasure to be here. Thanks to our fellow candidates. I really appreciate your presence as well. It's just great to get to know you. Again, as Jen was saying, Jen Straiter, it's nice to get to know people beyond Facebook. Again, I think really this is at the root of my campaign. We have to restore the conversation. I'm very much opposed to polarization. I'm very much opposed to party politics, and I think we have to find ways to come together and find common ground. When we don't do that, we risk hurting our constituents. We risk not being responsive and acting with urgency. And I will say that if elected, I ensure my constituents that I would respond with urgency, whether in person or by email. And it would really be a great honor to serve this city. I hope for your vote, either early voting or on primary day. And thank you again for your time. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thank you. I have to agree with David about getting back out in the community wholeheartedly. I am considered the block captain on my block, throwing the National Night Out party every single night. When we first moved in, none of the neighbors talked to one another. So I put flyers together, mailed them out to every single person so that I knew that they got it via the USPS. And slowly but surely, our block party has gotten bigger and bigger every single year. More and more neighbors coming out, hanging out, having a great time. We've had some city officials, we've had some Robbinsdale Police Department show up to interact with everybody and get more of a community feel. So That's, that's where I agree with him on that community. And thank you to everybody here. Mia, I know we've been on things together with the Planning Commission. Thank you very much. And Jen, Jonathan, David, it's great to have all of you up here with me.
Mia?
Thank you so much for your time and attention this evening. Thanks again to the League of Women Voters and CCX Media and our moderator, Kathy. Thank you. I think this is the beginning of many great conversations. These are opportunities for voters to become more informed. So thank you all for the great questions that you've submitted tonight. And if your question wasn't asked, I would love to hear from you. I would love to connect. So you can reach out, read more about my background. You can learn why my middle name is just the letter Z. And you can look up some voter information and also my platform at miaparisian.com. And again, I hope to earn your vote to serve you on our city council. Thank you.
Jen?
Yes, I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters, City Hall, everyone who made this happen this evening. I am running for City Council, like many people, because I love Robbinsdale, and I'm here to help. I love being able to walk downtown to 2 different grocery stores, to be able to bike 10 miles to work, mostly on bike trails I created in collaboration with other cities. I love our traditions, and I hope that as a queer person, one day we can have a little pride festival of our own, or Pride in the Park. And yeah, so in kind of to recap, I'm Jen Straiter. I'm going to make this city more transit friendly, safer for bikes and pedestrians, as well as affordable and inclusive for everyone. You can check out more information at Jen4MN, that's Jenn, the number 4mn.com. All my contact info is there. You can volunteer or get a yard sign too.
And finally, Jonathan.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Healy. Just to reintroduce myself, I think it's important that when we're replacing someone with the institutional memory as George Selman on the council, since he's not running for re-election, it's important to have someone that has ideas and has experience, and I have both. You can see my policies in my brochure that I've dropped at 1,000 doors, nearly 1,000 doors. You can see it on my website, votehealy.com, and you can see it on social media. I want to thank the League of Women Voters of Minnesota. This is fantastic having this forum. Thank you to the City Hall. Thank you to everyone that is here, and thank you to the fellow participants.
After the primary, the 2 candidates with the most votes will be on the November general election ballot. At this time, I want to thank all the candidates and audience members for their part in the Ward 3 forum tonight. We will now have a 5-minute pause for seating of the 4 candidates for Ward 4 City Council. A special welcome to the 2 candidates for Robbinsdale City Council, Ward 4. Our 3rd candidate, Candidate Bakken, could not be here this evening and has sent a statement which I will read when we open up with our statements. Again, we ask the candidates to speak to you for 3 minutes of the vision that they have for the city of Robbinsdale. We will begin with Rebecca Johnson.
Thank you, Kathy. Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Johnson, and I am running for City Council to represent Ward 4. So what differentiates me from the other candidates on the ballot? For one, I'm brown, and I'm a woman. I inherently have a different way of viewing the world. And I think as the city of Robbinsdale continues to diversify, so should leadership representation. It's my personal assessment that the current council just lacks certain lived experiences that are vital to truly appreciating the most pressing needs that marginalized communities continue to face. And if I'm elected, I'll ensure that every decision that's put in front of the council is viewed through the lens of racial equity. I do not have all the answers, but I am not afraid to ask the questions. I'm a journalist by trade. I've served the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office as their public information officer, and I've worked as a communications strategist for several Minnesota-based corporations. And here's what I can say with absolute certainty, is that when equity is not intentionally centered in the decision-making process, inequities will be perpetuated. And we've learned too much over the past few years, not just about race, but about public safety and the value of community health partnerships and the very real and worsening problem of climate change and the threat that it poses to all of us. Doing nothing is not an option, and that is why I'm running for city council. We know better now, and when you know better, you do better, and that's my hope for all of us. So whether you vote early or in August on Election Day, I ask that you please vote for me, Rebecca Johnson, and that we really just embrace change, embrace learning and kindness, and that we can reimagine the future for Robbinsdale together. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Aaron Wagner.
Thank you so much. Thanks to the League of Women Voters, CCX Media, Robbinsdale City Hall for hosting this tonight. My name is Aaron Wagner. I am running for Robbinsdale City Council, Ward 4. And a little bit about me is I was born at North Memorial Hospital, and I grew up I was raised nearby in the Anoka area. So I bought my house 5 years ago at the south end of Robbinsdale, and I've really enjoyed living here ever since. I am a kind of a fitness enthusiast, so I like jogging and biking and utilizing all of the natural resources that Robbinsdale has to offer with the trails and parks that are nearby. And anytime I have family and friends come over, I'm always trying to get them outside and into our my neighborhood, which is full of lovely homes and people. So I'm very grateful to be here in Robbinsdale. And I'm a union member in MAPE Local 802. I'm active in the DFL as well as the Twin Cities Democratic Socialists of America. So I consider myself a progressive candidate, and I want to bring some new energy and vision to city government. Kind of that call to public service I've had for a long time, and as an IT professional, I've tried to use those skills in a way that I can give back to communities I care about. So that's looked like I've worked in a college before, and now I work for the state of Minnesota. So and I think this role on the city council really is the next step, and I'm prepared to do it through that experience of those other kind of public service adjacent roles I've done with IT work. So I'm really eager and excited for the opportunity to give back to a town that I have grown to love. And I think that the best way to give back, for me anyway, is to expand the power of working people in this city. As a working person myself, I have an understanding of the struggles and everything that working families have to go through. So things like having elected representatives democratically accountable to the people that they represent is very important to me. And so my promise to you is that I will remain, as to the best of my ability, open and accessible to any feedback and correspondence that you might have for me, and I would just love to keep the dialogue and communication open so that this is truly a seat of the people, for the people. And also, it doesn't necessarily just stick with open communication and a responsive city council person. There is, material needs that working people have. So I think things like the Blue Line extension really helps address some of the economic inequities and environmental inequities that working families in Robbinsdale face. With oil prices as high as they are, we cede a lot of power to those large and rich corporations. So That, I think, will address that if we have an option for alternatives modes of transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I am going to read the statement that candidate Bakken sent to us because they could not attend this evening. And so I will read it now. First, my thanks to both the League of Women Voters hosting us tonight and CCX for broadcasting this forum. As I mentioned, I am Pat Bakken. I have been a resident of Robbinsdale for 24 years and raised my 2 children here. They both attended Robbinsdale schools, one graduated from Armstrong and one from Cooper. I am running for re-election in Ward 4 of Robbinsdale. By law, city councils have a limited scope of responsibility, and within that framework, I have worked hard to put Robbinsdale and our residents at the forefront of every decision and action. I have improved communication and engagement between residents and the city, met with dozens of groups of neighbors to address neighborhood concerns and problem properties, and have just worked hard improving Robbinsdale in a number of ways, from raising money for individual residents in need to ensuring the beautiful flower baskets remain in downtown Robbinsdale. I continue to work toward a vibrant, connected community. Robbinsdale has a tremendous sense of community and pride. It is one of the reasons there's such passion and love for Robbinsdale. I want to not only strengthen that sense, but expand it. With a few conversations that I have had, some residents say they don't feel that strong sense of pride, or that they are fully part of the community, or that they have concerns that they are not welcome or don't fit in. A sense of community is great, but for this to be truly a strong community, we need to work to ensure that everyone feels that pride and love for Robbinsdale. Unfortunately, ultimately, a strong community is one where everyone is safe and feels safe, connected to the community, and is proud to live here. I think there is some work to be done here throughout the city to make this happen. I am excited to take on the challenge. Another priority is the Blue Line extension proposal. There are many issues that come to the council: street reconstruction, water treatment, public safety, neighborhood concerns, for example, but none are bigger than the Blue Line extension that is proposed to run through the middle of town along County Road 81. I am a transit advocate. For 10 years, I commuted daily to downtown Minneapolis on nearly the same route LRT would use, boarding at North Memorial and then right down West Broadway. This is a project that will outlive us all, and I have very serious concerns about the proposed route, and not just for Robbinsdale. Impacts along the newest sections in Robbinsdale and North Minneapolis need to be very carefully studied. For example, will this route really improve accessibility to those in need? The proposed stops in Robbinsdale fall outside the walk shed for many of the most in need in our city. Where will the 250-car parking ramp be located? Near Downtown Center and Robbins Center? What businesses will be displaced? What are the impacts on our authentic downtown Main Street? Will traffic and congestion increase further in the downtown area as cars avoid the train? There are not answers to these questions right now, and we need to very carefully and emphatically ensure these questions are answered in a way that benefits Robbinsdale as much as possible. And with that, I will say thank you again and ask for your support and partnership to help me make Robbinsdale the best place to live, work, and do business. All right. So we have heard the 2 candidates for Ward 4 of the City Robbinsdale Council who are on the primary election ballot, and have heard a statement read from the 3rd candidate for Ward 4 of the City of Robbinsdale. It is now time for the audience questions. The audience may continue to write and raise your hand for a league member to collect your question during the forum. Questions may be directed to an individual or to all candidates, and each candidate can respond to any question. If a question is directed at a specific candidate, the other candidates will be given an opportunity to briefly respond as well. It is our intention to select questions that represent interests expressed by members of our audience and those who submitted questions on our email site and by phone. We do reserve the right to consolidate questions if there are several on one issue, so that as many issues as possible may be covered during this period. Questions will be answered in rotating order. Candidates, please limit your responses to 1 minute. And what we're basically going to do is you'll answer a question, and then you respond, and then we'll start with you, and you answer the question. We'll go back and forth, okay? So with that, I will begin with the first question. It will go to Ms. Johnson. What types of new businesses would you support in Robbinsdale?
So, in preparing to run for city council, I went online to find out as much information as I could about what community members were already asking. Oh, thank you. So, leading up to running for council, I tried to find everything I could about what the community was currently saying about the businesses and different entertainment possibilities. So what I heard back in this 2017 assessment was that people wanted more shopping and they wanted more entertainment. And I personally loved karaoke growing up, so I think we need a karaoke bar in Robbinsdale. No, it's not a priority, but I think it would be fun. And I also would like to see more minority-owned companies. I do not have the data in front of me about what it currently is, but either way, again, the city is diversifying, so we should diversify our businesses and really give everyone an equal chance to succeed as a resident of Robbinsdale. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. A karaoke bar would be a lot of fun in Robbinsdale. So I also agree that we need more minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, just again to reflect the diversity of the city. It has changed since some members of the council started serving. So I think it's important for the city to reflect those changes with their businesses. I'd like to see more. Worker cooperatives too. I think empowering working people is important to me, so having things like that. And then also, a community center would be a great idea as well. And I know that was brought up in the Ward 3 discussion, and I definitely support that.
Our next question. What are your thoughts on equitable and affordable housing in our city? And we'll start with Aaron.
That's a great question. I mean, I would love to see more, affordable housing introduced into the city. When new apartments or new building development is approved, it needs to have provisions for a certain amount of those be kept aside for affordable housing. And we also have to think about rezoning some existing areas of the city so we can introduce, multifamily homes and things like that to improve the amount of housing availability, and in a hopes to make them every piece of property more affordable.
So I spoke a lot about equity in my opening statements, so I have a lot of thoughts about this, but in the 1 minute that I have to answer, I'd like to make a point that equitable housing is not just about affordability, but making sure that these homes are near resources that allow families to thrive and kids to play outside. And so, as an overall topic, of course, equitable housing is something that the city needs to address. I know the median age of the Robbinsdale residents right now is 37 years old. I'm 36 years old, and I am a mom of 2 kids. And, I would really want to see housing closer to just any new developments really show up near the resources that the residents can actually use. Thank you.
Okay. Our next question, and this will go to you, Rebecca. More than half of the population of Robbinsdale, like the rest of the U.S., is women. As my local official, what is your position or your future position on women's equality and human rights?
Okay, so obviously there was a very large decision made by the Supreme Court on Friday, so this question's a little bit emotional for me to answer. But yes, exactly. More than half the population are women. And so it really is, it's tough to talk about right now, because even though I have my feelings and my stances, I don't feel like they're being respected right now. So that's something that I will work very hard for. That's something that I will certainly want to have dialogue with not just the women in the community, but men, and try to understand, who wants to be an ally, who wants to really champion different initiatives to increase equity. And I have to say, a lot more work needs to be done around equity of women in color. So I think that I could be a very good representative on that topic if you voted for me. Thank you.
So the majority of, well, not a majority, but I guess a large number of minimum wage workers are women and people of color. And so I think it's important to recognize that. And part of my vision for the city is to introduce a $15 minimum wage ordinance citywide, and that will help bring up the wages for all those groups I just mentioned, and kind of bringing in par with an economic equity program, as well as a sick and safe time policy as well. Because again, those same workers oftentimes are not afforded paid time off for if they are ill. And especially, moms taking care of sick kids, it's really important for them to have the ability to still get paid and stay home and take care of their kid.
Okay. This next question will go to you, Erin. Can you describe how the Met Council 2040 plan will affect Robbinsdale, positively or negatively?
So honestly, with all honesty, I'll have to brush up on the 2040 plan and all of its finer details with the Met Council. But I know that the Blue Line extension is a project put forward by the Met Council, and so I think just maintaining a good partnership with them, whether it's with that or with the 2040 plan, is extremely important. And so I think being an advocate and ally for existing work that the Met Council is doing is important, because if we have to have a level of goodwill, and we need to have the say of our city residents as well. But maintaining like I said, a level of goodwill with these county officials and the Met Council is really important. And having someone with drive and energy and a vision to do that, I think, is important, and something that I can bring to the City Council.
Like I promised, I don't have all the answers, and I refuse to talk about things that I don't fully understand. I don't know the ins and outs of the budget at this point. But as far as the light rail goes, I definitely support it. And, thank you. I'm sorry. Good thing there's only two of us. I can have more time, right? So as far as the light rail goes, I absolutely support it. If we're going to build a robust downtown Robbinsdale, I don't know what favors we're doing anyone by not actually bringing people into the city to spend money at these different businesses. As far as I apologize. I threw myself off by not turning my microphone on. Like Pat mentioned in his opening statement, is that there seems to be issues that some residents feel they haven't been consulted on. And I think it is important that for a project this large, that everyone feels like they have been heard. Pat also has had 12 years already to make these changes that he's talking about, so I do feel like maybe bringing in a fresh perspective might be helpful.
All right. Our next question will go to you, Rebecca. Speak to your views on ethics for government officials and its place in your candidacy.
So one of my biggest personal values is accountability, personal accountability. And so if I'm elected, I think that it is my job to act ethically. I also think that ethics is a very large concept, that it's hard to, speak to anything specifically. But Robbinsdale, I assume, has a code of ethics that I would get to know intimately and make sure that I am doing things the right way for the people who vote for me. I also expect that of people, of elected officials that I vote for. And when they don't uphold what they said they would do, I think it's worth being challenged, and I would expect to be challenged if I veered from what I promised at this point in the election as well.
All right.
Yeah, it goes without saying that ethics are extremely important for elected officials to, a set of ethics to abide by. And of course, as a candidate, I would follow the city's code of ethics. And, also, I think that when we think about that kind of topic, it's important to remember that being accountable to the constituents of the people you represent is a part of that ethical standard, in my opinion. And so being able to, the ability to recall an elected official, I think, is a foundational aspect of what a democratic society is made up of. And so I would, support that and that process that Robbinsdale has. And if that needs to be re-examined in light of different things, then that's certainly something we can look at. But it should be, there, and the ability to recall somebody should remain as part of kind of the ethical code of conduct. And yeah, so if we have to remain accountable, and I will remain accountable as a council member.
Okay. Next question. Again, Aaron, go to you. Robbinsdale is home to both a gun shop and an abortion clinic. What is your opinion regarding recent Supreme Court rulings and its effect on Robbinsdale?
Yeah, it is a big question for 1 minute. But, I think with the Supreme Court ruling about the conceal and carry, it was unfortunate to see that ruling because at the end of the day, if you're entitled to bring a gun into any public space, then it is an attack on public spaces as, just principally. So that's very concerning. And with the Roe ruling, I was heartbroken by that. There's a lot of people I care about that can give birth to children, have given birth to children, and it's an attack on them. It's an attack on me, because they're my loved ones. So I think Robbinsdale should own and be proud that we have an abortion clinic in the city, and we should do everything we can to defend it. And if that means, examining ways to, just help out the clinic in whatever way possible. If it's putting around a certain amount of distance that these anti-choice protesters can harass healthcare patients, then I think we should look into that because I think that's a great idea.
I'll speak to the gun shop first. I haven't heard any complaints about this business. I have looked them up online and see that they offer training, and so I think that in itself is important. Right now, guns are very such a personal topic to so many people. I really hope that we can rally that same type of energy around women's rights. But I don't think, I don't have an issue with the gun shop knowing what I know. So I'd have to look into it. As far as the abortion clinic, I think with that, I would just like to pose the question for people who like to say, well, it's not, haven't lost it, the states can make their own decision. And then what if we take it a step further and we say, why don't the counties control it? Or why not cities, right? And then, well, why not women? Why can't women decide what happens to their body? So I'm just, again, a little passionate and probably haven't said everything I want to say, but it's obvious. Thank you.
This is our last question, and it will go to you, Rebecca. What are your top priorities if elected?
So my top priority definitely would be to connect with the people in Ward 4 who right now just feel completely disenfranchised. And I know that there are groups. When I had a chance to speak with Council Member Bach, he kind of told me how, there's an engaged portion and then there's some who's not. And I said, I think that's really more of an issue of, being informed is a privilege. So really figuring out how to tap into those communities who, they spend money here. They are residents in this community. How do we reach them to ensure that they no longer feel like they're just othered in the community? And given my work as a communications professional, I think there's a lot that can be done even just to attract more people to the city council meetings. I give the council so much credit for what they do already. They stream live, the recordings are there, it's open to the public, so, but how do people get to know about it? So my biggest thing would be connecting and communicating. Thank you.
Thank you. We have now reached the final segment of the forum. Oh, I'm so sorry.
All good. It's all
I
good.
didn't see you.
That's all good. All right. So my top priorities are, remaining, as I mentioned in my opening statement, remaining open and accessible to the working people of Robbinsdale. The city council seat is yours, right? The people of Ward 4, this is your seat, and I am just hoping to be a voice and amplify the concerns that you have. My second priority is to really be an ally and advocate for the Blue Line extension. I know there's some, the route did change and it's down 81 now, but I still think that is a great plan and it should move forward as such. 81 already divides the city, so a rail line going through it shouldn't change much. I mean, the train's going to have to, there's traffic signals and you still can cross the rail with your vehicle or whatever other means of transportation. There's other plans if you look at the plan, and I think it's worth pursuing as such, because otherwise it's just going to get delayed longer and longer. My third priority, $15 minimum wage citywide. I do think that cost of living increases are going up, and they're not going to stop going up, so we really need to help the great people of Robbinsdale out with that.
We now have reached the final segment of the forum, when each candidate has 1 minute to give a closing statement. We will begin in reverse order from the opening statement, and that means we begin with Aaron.
Thanks again for the opportunity to speak and for the ability to run for office. That's what makes our country great and our democracy, staying involved with it. And so I want to thank all of the other candidates that have decided to run too, because again, it's important that we remain engaged with our city politically. And to League of Women Voters, thanks again. CCX Media. My name is Aaron Wagner, running for Ward 4. AaronForRobbinsdale.com is the website. You can check out more platform items that I didn't get close to covering here. If you have any other questions that we didn't get to tonight, I would love to answer them. And if you see me around town running or biking, please say hi. I'd love to meet you.
Thanks, Aaron. In closing, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself, because I didn't do that at the beginning. So again, my name is Rebecca Johnson, and I grew up in a small town called Barnesville, Minnesota. It was a population of 2,000. It was a potato farming town. I know Robbinsdale loves to tout its small town feel, and I get it. I loved being able to just have so much wide open space and to be creative as a kid. However, as one of the only not white people in Barnesville growing up, I also see the harms of being insular and not welcoming people from outside your community in. So that goes back to the point of, people might be scared that crime, whatever that means, I see people talking about crime generically. I'd like to learn more about what those crimes are specifically. But we need to do more to welcome people into our community. So yes, let's be a small town, let's be close neighbors, but let's also be welcoming to people who want to come and support this community and our businesses. Thank you.
Well, thank you to both candidates and to the audience here present tonight. You have heard these two candidates for Robbinsdale City Council, Ward 4, who are on the primary election ballot. After the primary, the two candidates with the most votes will be on the November general election ballot. At this time, I would like to turn the rest of the forum back to our president, Patsy Green.
Thank you to all the candidates that participated tonight, and great job. First of all, I'd like to encourage all our candidates to go to vote411.org and fill out the survey. If you go on, you can go to your state, and then you can go to your city, and there will be questions there for you to answer. The other great piece about Vote 411 for voters is it's a one-stop shop for where to register, where to figure out who's on your ballot, where to vote, and any other information they need. It is a great source, so we encourage our candidates to go to Vote 411 and fill out the candidate surveys. The primary election will be held on Tuesday, August 9th, as we said, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is an interesting ballot with many candidates. Partisan races are listed separately, and you can only vote for candidates in one political party. You can vote on August 9th at the polls. Early voting did start June 24th and runs through August 8th, or by absentee voting from home, which is safe and confidential. To request an absentee ballot, call your Robbinsdale City office at 763-537-4534, or request it on the internet at robbinsdalemn.com/city-government/elections. Did you get all that? You can also apply online at minvotes.org, mnvotes.org, or at vote411.org/Minnesota. If you are not a registered voter, you have until July 21 to register in advance of the primary. You can go to minvotes.com and register. You need your driver's license or last 4 digits of your social security number. You may register at the polls if you have been a resident of the state for at least 20 days before the election. You need a valid receipt for any utility bill showing your correct address in the precinct. You may also register by being accompanied by a registered voter in that precinct who will take an oath along with the election judge that you qualify to vote in that precinct. And the last thought is, a member of this audience or resident feels an issue has not been adequately addressed, League of Women Voters urges you to contact the candidates directly. The League of Women Voters encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. Membership is open to all, men and women of all ages. For more information, you can find us at lwvcnepr.org, the Crystal New Hope East Plymouth Robbinsdale League. Tonight's forum will be replayed on CCX Media. Go to CCX Media to find those dates and times, and shortly they will be posting the link to this forum, and it will be posted on League of Women Voters Crystal New Hope East Plymouth Robbinsdale website and Facebook page, and on CCX Media's website. Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone participating. Have a good evening.